This is going to sound like clickbait, but I'm actually serious when I say Hooxi gets more hate than he deserves for losing to teams that G2 generally should be beating. And I wanted to use IEM Chengdu versus Mouz as an example. I also want to look at this for my own benefit because I want to make sure that this isn't Hooxi's fault and Hooxi's just not setting players up into really bad positions because Niko, one of the best players in the world, maybe top 5, top 10, depending on how you rank him, but he tends to do... Let me actually show you what I'm talking about. Just to be clear, this isn't only about Niko, but he tends to be the biggest proponent of this, where Mouz is a little more consistent, and Hunter is just inconsistent in general. But if we look at some events in CS2 where G2 haven't done as well as expected, who did they lose to? And how did that loss happen? Well, they lost to Mouz on Nuke in map 3. Okay, what happened in this map? So this is the quarterfinal. G2 should probably beat Mouz, although Mouz is a great team. You know, individually, G2 should be better. We go to Nuke, map 3. They get 9-3'd on CT side. Is that the IGL? I'll talk about game plans and things like that. That is sometimes on the IGL, but this is a problem independent of necessarily of his calling in general. They get 9-3'd on CT side. Not a single player on their team does well. Okay, how about in that same event? They lose to M80 on Vertigo, map 3 Vertigo. Mouz and Niko are the two bottom fraggers on their team. The two of the best players in the world. They're both below 0.8 rating. Okay, well, let's look at another event. Surely this cannot be consistent. Who do they lose to? They lose to Mouz. I would go for that, but it overpasses in the pool. They get 6 rounds on T side. That's fantastic. On Overpass, I think that was the most CT-sided map in the pool before it got removed. And then you end this game, Niko's got a 0.88 rating. Mouz at 1.06 with 10 rounds. We go to the major. They lost to Na'Vi. Close games, right? Close games. Niko has one good map on Nuke, and earlier in the event, he had a bad map against the same team. If you look at it, usually the T sides on these games are fine. Here we have G2, they get 8 rounds on T side. I mean, Monacy's carrying, but Nex is their second fragger. The guy just got cut. Hunter's got a 44 ADR. Then you look at Ancient. This is one that you could definitely say, good chance it's on Hooxi. Hooxi could have had an impact, right? Hooxi could have changed that outcome. Let's take a look at their game versus Virtus Pro because of the disconnect. They were probably losing that game. Well, what happened on Inferno? Niko's got a 0.89 rating. Their players it feels like their players just aren't showing up. And if we look at this map, they got 5 rounds on T side. Look, Inferno was leaning a bit T-sided, admittedly. But if we look at Virtus Pro, against top 10 teams, they carry on CT side compared to T side. So if you can get 5 rounds against them, you should be able to close it out on CT side. That's where your star players usually are star players. It's not even like their T sides are the biggest issue in these games that they lose. A lot of the time, it's their CT side. And if we take a step to look into it, so we'll go to ESL Pro League and IEM Chengdu. So I wanted to look at how did Niko actually do? Maybe he wasn't given opportunities, right, in these Nuke games. They've got a 13-4 loss to Mouz in map 3 on Nuke at ESL Pro League, and they've got a 13-8 loss to Mouz on Nuke map 1 at IEM Chengdu. Maybe Niko's just not getting chances. Here's G2 versus Mouz, gun versus gun rounds only. G2 CT side, Niko's 1-5. Then we go, let's go G2 versus Mouz in the other game. Niko, 3-4, which isn't terrible, but then you look at his kills across every series, he's almost a kill per round player on gun versus gun rounds. That's where he should be shining. If you have your best rifler not showing up, you're going to struggle to win. So for that reason, I wanted to take a look at this game versus Mouz. This is map 1. So this is the 13-8 loss where he struggled on CT side, but they started on T side. Now, you will have noticed if you were looking at those that a lot of the time they win their pistol round. So you could absolutely argue that G2 should be winning more gun rounds on their T sides, and I think that's fair. And I also think it's very possible that Hooxi just isn't calling well in these games. Maybe Hooxi is like struggling, maybe he's choking. Maybe he doesn't have established ways to get Niko into the game when he's doing poorly, and that's why I wanted to take a look at this game, because he does quite poorly, but he does really well the next map. So is he just not given opportunities to get into the game? Is he being put into really bad scenarios and his opponents are countering? I really wanted to take a look at that. So this is an anti-force buy. He got the initial kill outer, which is just a really nice kill by him. A good anticipation to grab that frag. And then he's, you know, gone back towards ramp. Nothing's probably going to happen for a little bit. And yeah, Mouz is just going to end up saving here. And I mean, Niko dies there, but it's not a big deal. Doesn't really matter. You've got Mouz. They're going to try and buy next round, but they've got the 3 saved rifles. So you're looking at, you know, what is a semi-dangerous round. They do have to worry about it a little bit. Niko's going to be the solo cross. Usually you have 1 player cross just to make sure that you don't, the CTs don't move back and re-clear this out for free. Usually this lurk can be very effective. And this is one of the things I was worried about, by the way, is if they're going into a lot of 4v5s, Niko's absolutely a player that will make aggressive moves to try and give his team a chance back into a round. And that has historically sometimes caused problems. Like in the major final at Stockholm, Niko had one of the best tournaments of all time, and statistically, his final was not that good. But if you actually watch the gameplay, he had to make a lot of hyper-aggressive, like overly aggressive plays to get his team back into the game. And in doing so, he ended up dying sometimes in ways that, you know, weren't great. So here, 3v4, he's kind of forced to make a play, and it's not the most comfortable play either, moving up the heaven ladder. That's not really what you want to be doing. He's also getting flanked, and I believe they know he's here. Yeah, so that's unfortunate. I'm not sure why he went down. Usually you have people in this situation, Niko's cleared all this out. Usually he's going to end up going through and going up and around into heaven here, which would give him, he'd be a lot more comfortable with that. Not 100% sure why he went around, and Hooxi is just going to spot his legs here, which is just so unlucky. So yeah, I think you could say that this is a situation where Niko was somewhat forced into this position and ends up dying because of it. And that's really the question I want to answer in this is Niko forced into these positions, or is he just not performing the same, kind of like a config situation? Is he just not performing the same when he gets into these situations? I will say, you can absolutely argue that if your top players have to always play amazing in order for you to win, that's a problem with the IGL. And I'm going to agree with that to some extent, but if you look at top teams that have consistent results, they typically just have more fragging, right? And that's the problem with picking up Nexa. And just to give some context, this seems to be kind of how it goes, right? If we look at, okay, Brokey, highest rated player on FaZe. Bad map, lost. Bad map, lost. Bad map, lost. Bad map, lost. Bad maps generally from your best player typically result in losses. And it's not like he's got a crazy high 1+% rating, you know, 1+ rating percent streak. Niko's 1+ rating streak is generally higher than most other really good players. Look at Stown. Bad map, lost. Good map, lost, right? Bad map, these are really bad. That's a real, you know, anyone doing this badly, you're probably losing. Bad map, lost. They won a map with him playing, you know, pretty badly. Okay, so they're like 1 for 5, 1 for 6. Oh, okay, so Astralis is getting some wins sometimes when they have bad maps. Sometimes. What about Donk? I'm going to spoil this for you. If he has a bad map, they absolutely lost the game. There's just like never, ever, ever are they winning the game. Okay, once. All right, and you compare that to Niko. 2 bad maps, 2 losses. 2 bad maps, 2 losses. Bad map, loss. Bad map, win. Okay, so they're what, 1 for 6? Here's another loss. Here's another loss. Now, I suppose you can argue that they should be able to find a way to win without Niko anyways once in a while, but you just look at the teams. You look at the players on these teams. You have 3-4 really good players on most of these teams. And you look at G2, there's a stark difference, right, between 4 players that are doing great and 3. Or even 2, because you've got Hooxi and Nexa, and Hunters just doesn't seem to be a top 10 player this year. Then what you're looking for is you're looking for enough fragging power to make it happen when they don't do well. And replacing JKS with Nexa is probably what triggered that, you know, because JKS did have that fragging to turn things in his favor to help when things went wrong. Okay, so outer cross. Niko's going to be one of the lead fraggers here since he's got 60 HP. Spots Jimfat out. Doesn't get the trade, which would have been great to get, but he's a little scared because he's got 20 health, and then Hunter just strafes right in front of him. I think when you're letting someone peek into you in a situation like that, when you already have 20 health, more often than not, you're dying, though I'm sure Niko can get that kill a lot of the time. All right, so they're on pistols this time. He's not leading out. And this is how these things can sometimes go. If the entry goes poorly, he certainly can just end up dying. And if he's not protected in the afterplant, he can also just end up dying because they just came straight out heaven. And this obviously isn't Niko's fault, but I'm thinking someone should have been covering this. Niko's gonna come out and plant. Hooxi's looking at the smoke. Mouz just didn't catch it at the right time. You could just say it's kind of unfortunate that the timing didn't work out, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the call there. So I skipped the Glock eco. What? So they missed their lurk smoke, it looks like, and that means Niko didn't end up throwing his top hut Molotov. He's gonna make first contact, somehow survives from that, and then takes 40 damage for free. All right. And again, they lose 2 players. Okay. I'm seeing a constant here. Again, they lose 2 players. I'm not 100% sure, but if I remember correctly, Niko loves to do that in those situations, and Xershin knows that Niko likes to do that. Which I feel like, you know, looking at ways you could be countered and tendencies you have that are a little too common and kind of adjusting away from those, probably I think I would put that on the coach more than an IGL. Or I guess you could put it on the player themselves as well. So just a deagle, doesn't get anything done. But I'm not really concerned about these kind of like pistol rounds. That's why I looked specifically at gun versus gun rounds. When Niko has guns, how did he do on CT side? Not that great. When Niko has guns, how's he doing on T side? Well, he had one pretty solid round, but a couple of these rounds really haven't been his fault. And here, he's just boosted Mouz up. They're basically kind of looking for a pick. To some extent, you kind of have to just do this on T side nuke. And he's just going to end up dying to Xershin. I think that's a kill he could be getting. Now, back in the day, you used to often have teams throw this flash to blind this player, but it seems like that's kind of gone out of favor, and instead teams are just like dueling this and being willing to trade on it. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with Niko. He just kind of doesn't clear that corner. I think he thinks he clears it, but he doesn't. Right? He thinks he's cleared that, and he's like peeking this deep angle, but he hasn't. Or you could argue that one's on Niko. So 7-3 down. There's been a couple rounds where Niko hasn't had a chance, and there's been a couple rounds where Niko maybe could have made something happen. Second last round of the half, and Niko's got an AK again. And he's, again, that's twice this game, taken 50 damage for no reason. I think from the Molotov twice, and he fell off for 40 damage. But maybe it was just those two. They're in a 5v5. They're going for an outer play. Niko's stepping in front of the smoke, which Niko does like to do. He typically wins these sorts of engagements. However, okay, I thought they were on a buy. I was going to say, however, should he be doing that with 56 health? Maybe not. If they were on a full buy, I would say definitely not. But with pistols, I think, you know, it's reasonable. And he does find a good timing. This is relying on Niko, and this is part of the problem. You know, if you have an offense that runs through a player like Niko, if you have a T side that really requires Niko, you're making some sacrifices for him to do well. He needs to deliver on those sacrifices. And you kind of probably need to have a plan B if things are going wrong. Otherwise, teams are going to be able to see that coming and counter it in their own way. They're going to, you know, their teams are going to be looking to counter that. And once in a while, you know, a few times a tournament, players just have bad games. I mean, like, even the best players are only going to have like 75% of their games above 1.0 rating, right? Everyone has bad games. So if you have no fallback option, then you're going to be in trouble. All right, so upper fast play. Niko throws the flashes. Niko kind of gets gifted that kill after the bomb site's taken because the player's trying to hide from his teammates. But Niko, I mean, that was pretty smart. Niko typically does a specific rotation, right? Most people are going to throw some flashes and drop down the ladder because I believe he threw it from right above the ladder. Instead, he does this loop around to actually catch Hooxi there, which is really smart. And that's the type of play I expect from Niko, where he just kind of has a good feel for what play needs to be made in what situation. But 2v1, this should be almost, I don't want to say unlosable, but it's definitely should be them winning. And Nex is going to get the kill. So he played a reasonably good T side, which is where you're looking at he can absolutely be shut down by bad IGLing or by just the team not doing well and not giving him opportunities. Was he given perfect opportunities? No. Is that expected on T-side nuke? Also no, right? You're like, well, yes, that is expected on T-side nuke, rather. Are you expected to be given great opportunity on T-side nuke? No, is what I meant. So on CD side, he's given one of the better locations. Just to show you statistically, the top 3 spots CT side for a rifler: A toilets, A connector on Mirage, so A toilets overpass, A connector Mirage, and outside on nuke is basically equal to A connector on Mirage. So you are expecting a good delivery from your rifler, your star rifler on outside on nuke. And piss around, I'm not going to worry too much about this. Niko typically does quite well on piss around. This is why G2 for a long time have had just an unbelievably good pistol round, because you have Niko and Monacy that are both insane on pistol rounds that just constantly destroy people. In this case, he doesn't get the kill, but that's acceptable. It's going to put them in an awkward spot though. And they're actually going to go for the force. Is this what happens here? They go for the force and then they just continually force. So Niko's looking for something reasonable. Hunter's watching the cross, but there must have been a timing that someone could have got across beforehand. There's no real pressure anywhere else. In fact, Yimfat is playing way far back, so he's not putting any pressure anywhere. Niko's just going to try and find a timing. Now, it would be nice if Hunter had a flash, or if they had Nexa or Hooxi with the flash that could pivot over and throw the flash, although whether you want that or not is quite suspect. Is they could just be setting up for for a ramp play. And he kind of just overstays his welcome there, if I'm being completely honest. And the problem is that you could definitely, if Niko doesn't feel confident in his team and their ability to win, this is something we saw from Simple, I think, near the Stockholm Major, kind of in that era, near the downfall of Na'Vi, where they stopped being the top one team. You could see he was taking risks that he wouldn't normally take, because it just, to me, it looked like he wasn't confident in his team's ability to win the round if he didn't get kills. And that could be what Niko's situation is as well. It's not like he did anything crazy there, but generally you want to take a shot or two there and then back up. Once everyone's looking at you with rifles, you've got a guy on top of Mini that's looking straight at him. He's not supposed to be able to get a kill there. He's not supposed to be able to shoot 4 shots and get away, if he doesn't get the shot, if he doesn't get the kill in the first few. Outer molly, outer flash, absolutely standard. He's here to stop the squeaky drop. Could get peeked with an op here, but you're not really expecting one on the first gun round. And I think he's just confident in his ability to win that fight if a rifle tries to peek him. Or actually, I think the molly might have landed deep enough. A lot of teams have been throwing that molly that lands inside a squeaky door that prevents that peek entirely. Then he's just going to be doing his thing on outer, and next is going to be in secret to try and stop if the cross does happen. So Niko's not too worried about that. He's trying to give some presence, but he knows that someone definitely could have crossed here. Next is just going to get timinged here, isn't he? Because you've got Xertion gets down. Okay, I thought he was going to continue following. It's going to turn into a ramp play. And Monacy is in pretty much perfect position to try and get a kill here and back off. He gets the kill, drops easily. And Niko actually dies on the rotate. Okay, I didn't think he was going to be there. Niko has a great read on the play here. He moves right over to ramp, 104. He's looking at the timing, swings in. He doesn't overswing there. He just goes for a play. He probably doesn't really need to be going for that kill. They're 5v4. They should feel fairly comfortable, but that's not a kill that's unreasonable to go for, especially your opponents are chasing Niko, or chasing Monacy there. You're kind of expecting that, they might not be too positioned for you. That was a great position, though, for Yimfat to actually catch him, to actually catch that specific peek. And I think you could say Niko could have gotten away with the kill there or not peeked at all. I think peeking there, it gave them a chance back into the round instead of a 5v4, which is absolutely not what you want. And this is, they were already kind of broke as well, so they're kind of investing everything into this round. Probably after saving, they saved a couple guns. So now they're investing heavily into this round to try and turn it their way. That's an insane nade from Xertion to hit 40 damage. He's getting peppered by utility very hard, much harder than you would hope for, which again, could be a game plan thing, right? If their game plan just isn't very effective, and that could be on Hooxi, that Niko's getting countered, but I tend to think the coach should make a big impact on that, even more so than the IGL. Okay, so Mouz is basically doing a very similar, it's the same strat with extra steps, so to speak. They're going for the outer cross with Xertion, and they're heading back ramp a little bit delayed, especially if you expect your opponents don't have an op. If Monacy doesn't have an op, Monacy loves to double ramp in the mid round, so if they don't have an op this time, it's going to be a little harder. Nexa and Hooxi are going to go for the re-aggress into secret, which is great, and they're going to get the kill. So now they're 5v4 again. They're in a pretty good situation. Shuhi is holding the lobby play, So, I mean, G2 are just in a winning position here, I think. How do they end up losing this? Do they? No, they get 8 rounds, so they should probably, this is a round they should win. Let's see what Niko's not going to see anybody, so let's just watch what happens in lower. Mollied out. They give Torshi maybe a little more room than he should. I don't know how you let that happen. They're doubled in lower. They have Hooxi and Nexa in lower. They know it's like lower is like the most likely position for the for Mouz to go through. They split up. They get pushed off. Like, this is what I don't like. They had 2 players in lower, and they let the bomb plant happen, and they lose all this ground at the same time. I guess they're just trying to group up and play the 5v4, but this is... And now they're 3v4. All of a sudden, just instantly into the 3v4. They gave up so much control there. And if Hooxi doesn't get this kill, they're basically losing. Okay, so he gets the kill. Niko's on the ramp flank. He's a little delayed. And actually, Hooxi is just going to win them this round, isn't he? Niko sticks it. Hooxi's in position. He's got it. Yeah. That's close. That's close. Hooxi actually aces? Is that an ace? Hooxi aces to win them a CT side round. That is unbelievable. That is unreal. Unreal. All right, so again, he's in mini. Niko loves starting mini. Nades to break the smoke. This is one where the team kind of falls apart in upper, and if his team holds upper a little more effectively, maybe he doesn't have to nade to break the smoke to look at silo or to look at sight. He can nade to break the smoke to look at Squeaky, in which case he probably gets the kill on Squeaky and survives. This is an awkward situation, though. I mean, they have 4 players upper. They're just supposed to hold this. I mean, they really are. You have 4 players upper. Yeah, Monacy's not in a great spot, right? Because he's starting silos against an upper rush. That's not exactly what you're looking for, right? That you're not, if you're Monacy, you're not like, yes, I'm in love with this. Oh, he started rafters. You're just supposed to hold this for the rest of the team. Is really supposed to go more than, you know. But Monacy stays alive, so that's good. I mean, that's fine. Monacy's the extra player, gets himself in a sight, gets 2 kills. That's exactly what you're looking for. He's going to finish it off as well. That's what you're looking for out of Monacy in a big moment. His team isn't doing the most amazing plays, but he gets the kills he needs to get to give his team a chance at the round at the least. And Niko did get 1 kill. Can't really blame him for dying there. Not a big deal. He kind of has to make that play. He has to make a play to give Monacy some time. Because if he doesn't make that nade play, I think Monacy just gets trapped on site and dies, and they just lose the round probably. So it doesn't really see anybody here. T's are going to take a timeout. Good time for the coach to be talking. I mean, you know, G2 coach to be talking as well. 11-8. Nice little nade. Does, you know, takes a bit of a chunk out of the armor of Xerxin. Nothing too crazy. And I think he might just end up getting into a duel against Xerxin here. This is a situation where you might expect that. Okay, there's the smokes. So they're just safe smoking to cross. So Niko's not really being given too many opportunities. That could possibly be there could be a reason for it. Maybe they feel like if they try and do anything, generally, I mean, you're generally going to be throwing smokes, but sometimes teams are going to have something like, I didn't see Torshi here, this type of play where you have a guy kind of coming along the side here, what you saw from Niko, where he was, you know, playing in front of the smoke the one time, or you have a guy on top of Mini, he just loses a duel. I mean, yeah, and not only that, but Hunter dies because of that duel. Not only that, but if you remember back, very similar lurk from Niko where he comes in here, but Xerxin was looking here, Xerxin was playing that angle. Here we've got Niko not playing that angle. Torji's going to walk forward. Niko dies, and Hunter gets shot in the back because he's thinking of that possibility, but he's probably not. He gets kind of timing, but he's probably not expecting someone to necessarily be, you know, peeking him at that exact moment. He just gets timing there. But, you know, if Niko doesn't die, that could be very different. And this is like the back-breaking round, I guess. Oh, no. G2 have money, so they're going to be able to buy next round. But this is still one of the, you know, that's the last round that G2 get was at 11-8. 11-7, I guess, then they win 8. All right, so standard outer util, glaive smoke, molly, flash. You just end up dumping a lot of util outer a pretty standard way. I think this is, by the way, before the molly update, and I think that's why smokes kind of look weird too. I think because it was before the update. Again, Niko in a pretty standard position, not doing anything weird. Got a full buy out here. Nexa dropped a couple. Monacy's in good position. He's going to get helped out. Niko doesn't have a flash to help Monacy, which, you know, it's nice to have a flash, although you kind of need that more for a rifler, I think, than anything else. Monacy's, yeah, he gets screwed by that molly. But he does get the information. So now Monacy knows they're not going outer, or he knows they're not, like, hitting outer. Xerxin should probably be getting... I was wondering why Niko was holding the same angle Monacy was watching. I guess he was holding for that, you know, specific spot. Monacy didn't clear Africa, so Xerxin gets the kill, and that draws Niko back over. He was going to probably rotate into heaven and be ready for that upper hit. Instead, Niko has to be worried about outer now for the rest of the round, which means their upper is just going to be super weak, and there's nothing they can really do about it. And Xerxin, is he just going to have time to work? Is that what's going to happen? Wait, what? Okay, I thought I didn't realize the AK was under him. I'm like, did he just mean to throw the molly and he dropped his gun? Okay. So he mollies that, moves back. That molly gives protection. So, like, if they were going to go mini, you would oftentimes molly that to buy a bit of time so you could set up some utility and not be looking at secret for a short period of time. Upper hit's going to come out. You're not really... This upper hit is just not expected to do all that well, and Niko is fully committed to this play from Xerxin. He's full. So sometimes when this upper hit starts coming out, you'll have this player chase up the ladder quickly and try and support. And sometimes you'll have them stay here to try and catch that, you know, that player to catch the rifler. But in this case, he doesn't stay there, or he doesn't chase back up the ladder. Although he does get here in time, and he gets immediately killed. Which is that's the engagement you're expecting to take out of heaven. It's not like he's surprised by that. That's the engagement you're absolutely expecting in that situation. He just gets killed. You know, the reason I'm making this video isn't actually to call out Niko. It's not like I think Niko played a horrifically bad game here, but where do you place the blame in situations like this? Because what I see Hooxi getting all this blame, and basically like G2 should be winning tournaments. They've got to be winning with this core, and they're getting deep in tournaments. They're doing well, but when they get into the games in the playoffs, there's just a tendency for Niko or Monacy or both of them to kind of just have some bad games. And is Hooxi supposed to, they're not really with Nexa and Hooxi as individuals, and then Hunter just not being consistent recently. I don't think if Niko has a bad game, you're supposed to win. And that fucking sucks for Niko, and it sucks for Monacy, because you're not supposed to be in a team like that. You know, if you're, even star players have off games, right? But I want to show you, if we look at Dallas, there is no off game, right? There is no bad game for Niko. He just pops off every game except for the first two. And they lose the one game. You know, they lose this game where he does bad. They barely win this one where he does bad, but I'm going to wild guess Monacy pops off. Yes. Their whole team is shitting the bed and Monacy pops off. Now, this is the question, though, because you can absolutely say, hey, this is on Hooxi not finding a win out of those situations. But I don't think they're supposed to win with Hooxi and Nexa as individuals and Hunter in his current form if Niko has not a bad game, a really bad game individually. And the question is, would a better IGL be finding ways to get him into these games, right? Would a better IGL be getting him above a 72% 1+ rating map? Would a better IGL and a better strategy, a better coach, a better kind of system, would that be getting them into situations where Niko isn't having these games as often, and they can work without him? I don't know what the solution is. I think replacing Nexa with JKS, replacing JKS with Nexa was the tipping point where if Niko's doing bad, they don't have that extra firepower to do better. But yeah, anyways, I was just really kind of interested in what your guys' takes was on this, what other people's takes was.